Tonight, let us begin with a quiet thought. Across the surface of the earth, beneath forests, deserts, farmlands, and modern cities, there are places that were once alive with voices, streets where footsteps echoed, homes where lamps glowed softly at night, civilizations that rose, flourished, and then slowly slipped out of memory, not destroyed in a single moment, but forgotten, layer by layer, year by year, until even their names faded from human thought. And then sometimes, by accident, they were found again. A farmer digging a well, a traveler following an overgrown path, a worker breaking ground for a building. No great announcement, no expectation of discovery, just a moment when metal struck stone or roots were pulled aside and the past quietly revealed itself. Tonight we will wander through those moments, not with urgency, not with excitement, but slowly, gently, allowing the forgotten world to unfold at its own pace. As you listen, imagine yourself walking beside these discoveries, hearing the silence that waited centuries to be heard again. Let your breathing slow. Let the present day drift farther away. We are stepping back into time. Long before maps were complete, before satellites watched from above, the earth kept its secrets patiently. Civilizations did not disappear all at once. They lingered. Roofs collapsed softly. Roads filled with dust. Trees took root in abandoned courtyards. Rivers changed their paths. And eventually, memory itself loosened its grip. People passed by these places without knowing what lay beneath their feet. In southern Italy, fields stretched quietly beneath the sun. Farmers tilled soil that had been worked for generations. The land seemed ordinary, fertile, calm, unremarkable. Yet beneath that soil rested a Roman city, perfectly preserved, sealed away by ash and time. For centuries, no one knew it was there. When the ground was first disturbed, it was not history that was being sought. There were no scholars, no archaeologists, no plans to rediscover the past. There was only a practical task: digging deeper, reaching for water, carving a well into the earth. And then the shovel struck something solid. Stone walls emerged. Frescoes appeared beneath layers of hardened ash. Streets revealed themselves, still bearing the marks of wagon wheels. Even footprints remained, pressed into what had once been soft ground. A city paused. The people who first uncovered it could not have known the weight of what they were seeing. They were not stepping into a ruin, but into a moment frozen in time. Homes still held pottery. Shops still displayed signs. Public baths stood as if waiting for visitors who would never return. The discovery was accidental, but the silence that followed was profound. As excavation continued, the city seemed to breathe again. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with a quiet presence that asked only to be observed. This was not the only time the earth would give up its secrets in such a gentle way. Far across the ocean, in the high mountains of South America, dense jungle wrapped itself around stone. Moss softened edges. Trees grew where temples once stood. Clouds drifted low, hiding everything beneath a veil of mist. Local farmers knew the land well. They walked these slopes daily. Stone terraces were familiar to them, not mysterious, just part of the landscape. But the world beyond the mountains had forgotten this place entirely. Then, one day, a visitor was guided along narrow paths, climbing higher and higher. What emerged from the fog was not a single ruin, but a city, carefully planned, precisely built, and astonishingly intact. Stone walls fit together so tightly that even a blade of grass could not slip between them. Stairways climbed toward the sky. Homes, temples, and agricultural terraces unfolded naturally along the mountain ridge, as though the city had grown there rather than been constructed. It had never truly been lost. It had simply been overlooked. The jungle had not destroyed it. It had protected it, shielded it from conquest, hidden it from the noise of history. While empires rose and fell elsewhere, this place remained quiet, waiting. Rediscovery does not always mean resurrection. Sometimes it means remembrance. In Southeast Asia, travelers once followed rivers through thick forest, guided by local paths and half-forgotten stories. They did not expect what they found. Rising from the greenery were enormous stone faces, towers and temples, vast, symmetrical, and serene. Roots wrapped themselves around walls like careful hands. Trees rose from rooftops. Water systems, engineered centuries earlier, still guided rain gently across the land. This was not a single structure, but the remains of an entire capital, once home to hundreds of thousands of people. It had not collapsed suddenly. It had slowly emptied. Power shifted. Trade routes changed. The jungle moved in not as an invader, but as a caretaker. When outsiders first encountered these ruins, they struggled to believe that such a place could have been forgotten. But history does not require memory to continue existing. It simply continues. Sometimes rediscovery challenges what we believe to be myth. For centuries, a legendary city was spoken of only in stories. Poets described its walls, epics sang of its battles. Scholars debated whether it had ever existed at all. Many believed it was symbolic, a metaphor, not a place. And then layers of earth were peeled back. Not one city, but many built one atop another. Each layer representing a different era, a different people, a different version of the same story. Walls rebuilt, streets rerouted, homes constructed where older homes once stood. The legendary city was not imaginary, it was patient. Perhaps the quietest rediscovery of all came not from scholars or explorers, but from farmers. In a field, work proceeded as it always had. The soil was dry. The task was familiar. Then fragments of clay surfaced, shaped, detailed, unmistakably human. As digging continued, figures emerged. Soldiers, horses, weapons, thousands of them. Each with a unique face, each positioned carefully as though still standing guard. They had waited underground for more than 2,000 years. No announcement had summoned them back into the world. No prophecy, just a shovel, a moment, and chance. These discoveries remind us of something gentle and humbling. Civilizations do not vanish because they fail. They vanish because time moves forward. Rivers shift. People relocate. Memories thin. What remains is not emptiness, but quiet continuity. Even now, beneath modern cities, beneath roads and homes, layers of earlier lives remain. Walls stand behind walls. Floors lie beneath floors. The present rests comfortably atop the past, often unaware of what supports it. As you listen, imagine the ground beneath you. Imagine the countless footsteps that came before yours, the voices that once filled the air, the lamps that glowed softly at night, the civilizations that were never meant to be forgotten, only paused. And as your thoughts slow, remember this: the earth has not finished telling its stories. Some are still waiting. Rest now in that thought. As the night continues, let the idea settle gently in your mind that discovery is not always loud. More often it arrives quietly, almost shyly, as if the past is careful not to startle the present. Imagine a wide, open plain. Wind moves slowly across tall grass. The land appears empty. used only by grazing animals and passing travelers. For generations, nothing seemed to happen here, and yet just beneath the surface, stone foundations waited. Streets lay aligned to forgotten directions. Walls traced the outlines of homes where families once slept, dreamed, and spoke in voices long gone. In many places, rediscovery did not come with understanding. At first, people only sensed that something was different. The ground felt firmer. Stones appeared where none should have been. Patterns emerged that did not belong to nature alone. At times, these signs were ignored. History teaches us that countless discoveries were nearly missed entirely. Stones were removed and reused. Carvings were broken apart to build new homes. Ancient blocks were shaped into walls without anyone knowing they carried stories thousands of years old. Rediscovery is fragile. It depends on curiosity, patience, and often a willingness to stop and listen. In parts of the world shaped by deserts, the wind is both a destroyer and a guardian. Sand buries what it cannot erase. Entire settlements have disappeared beneath dunes, hidden so completely that even their outlines vanished. Travelers crossed these landscapes for centuries, unaware that below their footsteps lay roads, wells, and courtyards. Sometimes a storm changes everything. A strong wind clears a shallow layer of sand, revealing the top of a wall. A line too straight to be natural. A shadow that appears only at sunset. A pattern that repeats. From such small signs, entire cities have returned to memory. In these places, rediscovery feels like waking someone from a long sleep. Structures emerge slowly as if stretching. Colors return faintly, reds and blues muted by time but still present. Tools appear where they were last set down. Storage jars remain in place, once filled with grain, now holding only dust and echoes. What strikes many who encounter these sites for the first time is not how different ancient people were, but how familiar they feel. The rooms are sized for human bodies much like ours. Doorways fit the same stride. Handprints align with modern hands. The distance between home and work feels reasonable. The spaces reflect lives organized around routine, care, and continuity. These were not distant, unknowable people. They were us, living earlier. In some regions, rediscovery arrived through sound rather than sight. A hollow echo beneath a footstep. A change in how the ground responded to weight. A subtle difference in the way rainwater disappeared into the earth. These clues led people to underground spaces, tunnels, chambers, entire cities carved below the surface. Such places were not hidden by accident. They were designed to be unseen. Below ground, temperature remains steady. Sound fades. Light becomes soft and controlled. These underground worlds sheltered communities from heat, cold, invasion, and time itself. When rediscovered, they felt astonishingly intact. Walls bore soot from lamps burned centuries earlier. Niches still held places for tools and food. Passageways branched gently, leading to shared spaces where voices once gathered quietly. Rediscovering these places feels like stepping into a held breath. Above ground, the world changed. Below ground, it waited. Not all rediscoveries reveal cities. Some uncover paths. Ancient roads have emerged unexpectedly beneath modern streets, fields, and forests. Long, straight lines of stone that once connected regions, cultures, and economies. Roads that carried travelers, merchants, messengers, and ideas. These roads were not merely physical. They were threads of connection. When rediscovered, they often appear worn smooth, polished by countless footsteps. Grooves reveal where carts passed repeatedly. Edges show signs of careful maintenance, even devotion. To walk such a road today is to share space with generations of travelers who moved with purpose, curiosity, or necessity. And yet there are also rediscoveries that unsettle us. Places that reveal how fragile civilizations can be. Settlements abandoned suddenly. Meals left unfinished. Tools dropped where they fell. Signs of urgency without explanation. In these moments, silence feels heavier. But even here, the goal is not to awaken fear or drama. It is to recognize how life unfolds unpredictably and how quickly routine can shift. Time does not judge these moments, it simply carries them forward. Many rediscovered civilizations were not destroyed by conquest or catastrophe. They were left behind because the world around them changed. Rivers dried or moved. Trade routes shifted. Climate altered slowly. Political centers relocated. People followed opportunity elsewhere. The structures remained. Rediscovery, then, becomes less about loss and more about continuity. These places are reminders that human history is not a straight line, but a series of gentle turns. Even myths play a role in rediscovery. Stories passed down through generations often preserve fragments of truth. A tale of a city beyond the hills. A legend of stone towers swallowed by forest. A song that mentions a river that no longer flows. For a long time, such stories are treated as imagination. But occasionally someone listens differently. Someone notices patterns. Someone wonders whether the story points to something real, and sometimes it does. What is most striking is how often rediscovery happens when people are not looking for it. There is something deeply human about this. We move through the world focused on the present, on work, survival, routine. And beneath that focus, history waits, not demanding attention, not calling out, simply existing. This is why rediscovered civilizations feel intimate rather than distant. They were not preserved for us. They were preserved despite us. They remind us that the present is temporary but not insignificant, that our own lives will one day become layers, that our streets may become foundations, that our routines may be traced by someone else long after we are gone. As your breathing slows, imagine time as a gentle tide rather than a forceful wave. Imagine centuries passing not as noise but as quiet movement, day turning into night, season following season, footsteps fading, nature settling in, and then much later a pause, a moment when someone stops, when they notice, when they realize that what they are standing on is more than ground. That moment, that stillness, is where rediscovery lives. It is not about uncovering everything at once. It is about listening carefully, layer by layer, about respecting what remains, about understanding that forgetting is not the end of a story. It is simply a long silence between chapters. Now, let that silence wrap gently around your thoughts. Let the idea of forgotten worlds feel comforting rather than heavy. These places were real. They mattered. And in being rediscovered, even accidentally, they are allowed to rest once more, this time remembered. We will continue our journey soon. For now, remain here, in this calm space between past and present, where time slows, and the world breathes softly around you. As the quiet continues, allow yourself to drift even deeper into the space where time feels wide and unhurried. Rediscovered civilizations often change how we think about permanence. When we look at our own world, with its buildings of steel and glass, its constant motion and sound, It is easy to believe that what exists now will always remain. Yet history shows us something softer, something more patient. Nothing truly disappears. It simply settles. In many rediscovered places, the most powerful details are not the grand structures but the small ones. A worn threshold where countless feet crossed. A shallow groove where a door once swung open each morning and closed again each night. A hearth darkened by smoke, still centered in the room as if warmth might return at any moment. These details speak quietly of ordinary lives. People woke with the sun. They prepared food. They spoke to one another in familiar tones. They worried about weather, harvests, children, and rest. They planned for tomorrow, unaware that tomorrow would eventually drift so far into the future that only stone would remember it. Rediscovery brings these moments back, not loudly but gently. In some places, ancient writing reappears unexpectedly. Symbols carved into stone or pressed into clay, hidden beneath soil or rubble. At first, they are unreadable marks without meaning, but over time, patterns emerge. Repetition suggests language, structure suggests thought, and suddenly voices return, not spoken aloud but understood. A list of goods, a prayer, a record of land, a personal name. There is something profoundly calming in realizing that across thousands of years, humans have always felt the need to record their lives, to leave something behind, to be known even faintly. Sometimes rediscovery happens beneath modern cities. Construction begins. Roads are closed, foundations are dug, and there beneath layers of asphalt and concrete earlier streets appear. Entire neighborhoods reveal themselves, aligned differently, oriented toward older rivers or long-gone landmarks. Modern life pauses, traffic reroutes, noise softens. People gather at fences, peering downward into time. For a brief moment, the present acknowledges what it rests upon. In these moments, rediscovery becomes shared. Not the work of a single person, but a collective pause, a recognition that the world we know is only the latest chapter in a much longer story. Some rediscovered civilizations challenge assumptions about progress. We tend to imagine the past as simpler, less capable. Yet ancient water systems still function after centuries. Stonework remains precise. Urban planning reflects deep understanding of environment and community. These discoveries do not suggest that the past was better or worse, only that it was thoughtful in ways we are still learning to appreciate. Rediscovery humbles us. It reminds us that knowledge can be lost, that skills can fade, that even advanced societies are temporary expressions of human creativity, not permanent achievements. And yet, this realization does not need to feel heavy. There is comfort in knowing that humans have always adapted, always rebuilt, always reimagined their place in the world. When one city faded, another rose elsewhere. When one culture quieted, its ideas flowed into the next. Nothing was wasted. Even abandoned stones became foundations for new homes. Even forgotten roads guided later paths. Even myths preserved fragments of truth that would one day be understood again. As night deepens, imagine the earth itself as a keeper of memory, not selective, not emotional, simply patient. Layer after layer, it holds what has been given to it. It does not rush to reveal. It waits until the moment is right, until curiosity, chance, and care align. This patience is why rediscovery feels meaningful. It is not forced, it is offered. Some civilizations remain undiscovered still. Entire regions that have never been excavated. Landscapes that have not yet revealed their past. forests too dense, deserts too vast, oceans too deep, and that is okay. Not every story needs to be told immediately. Not every place needs to be uncovered. There is dignity in rest. Rediscovery at its best respects that rest. As your thoughts slow further, allow yourself to imagine walking through a rediscovered city at dusk. The air is cool. The light is soft. There are no crowds, no voices, only the sound of your footsteps and the quiet presence of stone. You are not intruding. You are visiting. The city does not demand anything from you. It does not ask to be explained or judged. It simply exists, content in being seen again, even briefly. And when you leave, it will remain, calm, silent, whole in its own way. This is the gift of rediscovered civilizations. They remind us that time is not an enemy, that forgetting is not failure, that even long silences can end gently. As you rest here between wakefulness and sleep, let that understanding settle comfortably. The past is not gone, it is resting. And like you tonight, it is at peace. Stay with that feeling of calm as though time itself has slowed to match your breathing. There is something soothing about knowing that the past does not rush. It does not demand attention. It does not fear being forgotten. It waits confidently beneath the surface of the world, trusting that one day, if the moment is right, it may be noticed again. Rediscovered civilizations teach us to listen rather than search. Many of the people who first encountered these places did not immediately understand what they had found. At first, there was confusion, stones out of place, shapes that felt intentional but unfamiliar, a sense that the land was trying to say something quietly. Understanding came later. Often it took years or even generations for meaning to unfold. Excavation moved slowly. Care replaced urgency. Each layer removed revealed another beneath it, like pages of a book that had been closed for centuries. This slow unfolding mirrors sleep itself. You do not fall asleep all at once. You drift, thought by thought, breath by breath. Rediscovery follows the same rhythm. In many ancient cities, signs of planning become clear only when viewed gently. Streets aligned with the sun, buildings oriented toward seasonal winds, public spaces placed where sound carried naturally without amplification. These choices speak of lives lived attentively. Ancient people paid close attention to their surroundings. They observed the sky, the soil, the water. They built not to dominate nature but to settle into it. And when conditions changed, they moved on, leaving their structures behind without resentment. The land accepted them back. There is comfort in imagining that when a civilization fades, it does not vanish into nothingness. It becomes part of the earth itself. Stones weather into soil. Walls become shelter for small creatures. Paths become faint lines that guide roots and rain. Nothing is wasted. Rediscovery simply allows us to notice this transformation. In some places, the rediscovered past feels so close that it is almost possible to sense movement. A suggestion of footsteps just beyond hearing. A flicker of activity at the edge of vision. Not because ghosts remain, but because the human mind recognizes familiarity. We recognize homes, a room arranged for rest, a space meant for gathering, a corner where someone once sat quietly just as you are now. These similarities bridge time effortlessly. As the present fades further into the background, allow yourself to imagine being part of this long continuum, not as an observer standing apart from history, but as a gentle extension of it. Your life, too, is a layer. Your routines, your paths, your quiet moments, All of them will one day settle into the world. They will leave impressions, however faint, and that is enough. Rediscovered civilizations remind us that importance is not measured by permanence. It is measured by presence, by having existed fully in the moment that was given, and in that sense nothing is ever truly lost. Somewhere beneath a field, beneath a forest, beneath the floor of a city apartment, traces of countless lives rest peacefully. They are not incomplete. They are finished in the most natural way possible. Their stories are not waiting to be rescued. They are waiting to be respected. As your thoughts soften, imagine the earth at night. Cities glowing gently, dark spaces stretching between them. Beneath it all, layers of history resting without tension or urgency. Everything is where it needs to be. Rediscovery, when it happens, is simply a brief conversation between now and then, a moment of acknowledgement, a quiet exchange. And then silence returns, comfortable, familiar, complete. Let that silence guide you further into rest. There is nowhere else you need to go tonight. No answers to chase, no discoveries to make. The world, past and present alike, is settled, and you can be too. Let the stillness deepen. At some point, rediscovery stops being about what is uncovered and becomes about what is felt. A sense of connection that does not require explanation. A quiet understanding that life, in all its forms, has always moved at this gentle pace, building, pausing, and moving on. When people first step into a rediscovered place, there is often an instinct to whisper. Voices lower naturally, movements slow. It is not because the space demands silence, but because it offers it. Silence here feels complete. In these places, time does not feel broken or interrupted. It feels layered. Past and present exist together without conflict. The air holds both calmly. Archaeologists often speak of responsibility, the need to move slowly, to document carefully, to disturb as little as possible. But even those without training sense it instinctively. There is an unspoken agreement between the living and the long gone. We will not rush you. We will not take more than we need. We will leave space for what remains unseen. This approach mirrors something deeply human, the desire to understand without owning, to witness without controlling. Rediscovered civilizations are not puzzles to be solved completely. They are experiences to be held gently. Many ancient cities reveal signs of joy as well as work. Decorations painted simply for beauty. Small figurines shaped without practical purpose. Patterns repeated not because they were efficient, but because they were pleasing. These details soften the distance between eras. They remind us that ancient people were not only surviving, they were living. They cared about comfort, about rhythm, about meaning woven quietly into daily life. As you rest, imagine someone from the past pausing in their day, sitting in the shade, watching the light shift, feeling the same calm you feel now. Time connects you effortlessly. In some rediscovered places, evidence suggests that people knew when to leave. There are no signs of panic. No unfinished defenses, no hurried escape, just a gradual thinning of presence, doors left open, tools cleaned and stored, homes emptied respectfully. It is possible that these people sensed change coming and chose adaptation over resistance, a quiet wisdom carried forward in absence. Rediscovery does not judge these choices, it honors them. What remains is not failure but acceptance. As the night stretches on, allow this perspective to ease your thoughts. The idea that endings do not need to be sharp or dramatic, that transitions can be soft, that silence can be full rather than empty. Even forgetting can be gentle. Some rediscovered civilizations were remembered only through patterns, through the way land was shaped, through unnatural symmetry visible only from above, through alignments that became clear centuries later. These patterns waited patiently for new ways of seeing, just as sleep waits for the moment when effort stops. You do not need to force rest. You simply allow it. The same is true of understanding the past. Meaning emerges when we stop demanding answers and begin observing calmly. Rediscovered civilizations teach us patience, not as an effort but as a state. They teach us that being still is not being inactive, that waiting is not being lost, that silence is not absence. It is presence softened. As your awareness drifts, imagine yourself stepping back from the ruins, leaving them undisturbed. They do not follow you. They do not fade. They remain exactly as they are, complete in their stillness. You carry nothing away except a feeling. A quiet reassurance that the world has always known how to continue, and that tonight you can let go and trust that same rhythm. There is nothing left to uncover right now, only rest. As the quiet settles even further, notice how gently your thoughts arrive now and how gently they fade. There is no urgency here, no need to reach conclusions, just a steady, calming awareness that everything moves as it should. Rediscovered civilizations remind us that time is generous. It allows things to unfold, to pause, and to return in unexpected ways. It does not hurry loss and it does not rush remembrance. It simply holds space. In many ancient places, signs of care are everywhere. Repairs made long after construction. Stones replaced, walls reinforced, floors smoothed again and again by patient hands. These were not people rushing toward the future. They were people tending to the present. This is easy to forget in a modern world that moves quickly. But the past offers a different rhythm, one that feels slower, steadier, and deeply reassuring. When a civilization is rediscovered, we often focus on its end. But far more important is how long it lived. The countless ordinary days that passed quietly. The seasons that returned again and again. The lives that unfolded without knowing they would ever be studied, photographed, or named. Those lives mattered simply because they were lived. As you rest now, imagine time not as a straight line but as a wide landscape. Past, present, and future existing together, gently overlapping. Some areas are brightly lit, others are shaded, none are empty. Rediscovery is just a moment when light shifts. Even now, beneath places filled with modern sound and movement, older layers rest comfortably. They do not compete. They do not demand attention. They simply exist, holding their place in the larger story. And someday, long from now, our own time will do the same. This thought does not need to feel heavy. It can feel peaceful. There is comfort in knowing that the world remembers in its own way, even when people do not. As your breathing deepens, allow yourself to feel part of that long continuity, not separate from history but woven into it. One calm moment among many. Nothing is rushing you forward. Nothing is pulling you back. You are exactly where you need to be. The rediscovered civilizations we have wandered through tonight are not calling out for answers. They are offering something simpler, a reminder that silence can be full, that rest can be meaningful, and that time is patient with us all. Let that reminder stay with you as your awareness softens further. There is no more to do, no more to seek. Only the quiet reassurance that the world has always known how to carry life gently, layer by layer, breath by breath. And now you can rest within that knowing. Allow yourself to drift even deeper into this calm, unbroken stillness. At this point, the idea of rediscovery no longer feels like an event. It feels like a natural rhythm, something that happens quietly without effort when the world is ready. Civilizations rest, time passes, and eventually understanding returns in its own gentle way. There is comfort in knowing that nothing needs to be held tightly. The ancient world did not try to preserve itself for the future. It did not build with the intention of being remembered. It simply lived. And in doing so, it left behind traces that were enough. Stone remembers footsteps. Soil remembers walls. Landscapes remember paths even when no one walks them anymore. Memory does not disappear. It changes form. As you rest now, imagine the feeling of standing at the edge of a rediscovered place just before leaving. There is no need to take anything with you, no desire to explain it fully. The experience is complete simply by having been present. You turn away slowly. The sight remains behind you unchanged, unbothered. It does not fade. It does not close. It continues resting exactly as it has for centuries. This is the kind of peace that does not require closure. In the same way, your thoughts can begin to loosen. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to solve them. They can rise briefly and then settle back into quiet. Sleep works the same way rediscovery does. You do not force it. You do not search for it. You simply make space and it arrives when ready. Ancient civilizations trusted cycles, day and night, wet and dry, growth and rest. They understood that stillness was not wasted time but necessary time. Tonight you are allowed that same understanding. Nothing important is being missed. Nothing essential is being delayed. Rest is not a pause in life. It is part of it. As awareness softens, the boundaries between past and present blur further. The rediscovered worlds we've wandered through are no longer separate places. They are part of a shared human calm that stretches across centuries. People once lay down at the end of long days just as you are now. They listened to the night. They trusted morning would come, and it always did. Let that trust carry you now. There is nothing fragile about this moment. It does not need to be protected or maintained. It can fade naturally, just as wakefulness does when sleep takes over. The earth continues turning. Time continues moving. History continues resting. And you are safe within that movement. Allow your thoughts to become fewer. Let the spaces between them widen. Let the silence feel warm rather than empty. This is not the end of the story. It is simply the place where effort ends and rest begins. Stay gently with this quiet. At this depth of rest, words no longer need to guide you forward. They can simply float by like distant echoes, unimportant and unhurried. Meaning softens. Attention loosens. Everything becomes slower, wider, calmer. Rediscovered civilizations teach us one last, simple lesson, that nothing needs to last forever to have been complete. The cities we spoke of were not unfinished stories. They were whole lives fully lived. Their people laughed, rested, worked, and dreamed. When their time passed, it passed naturally without needing to be preserved or explained. And now, you are allowed that same gentleness. You do not need to hold onto the day behind you. You do not need to prepare for the day ahead. There is nothing that must be remembered, nothing that must be solved. Just as ancient streets settled beneath layers of earth, your thoughts can settle beneath layers of calm. One by one they sink. Breath becomes the only rhythm that matters, slow, even, quiet. If a thought appears, let it pass like a cloud over ruins, noticed but not followed. The landscape beneath remains unchanged. You are not falling asleep. You are settling. The world does not expect anything from you in this moment. Time is not watching. History is not recording. Everything important has already been done. Long ago, others rested under the same sky. They looked up at the same stars. They trusted the night to carry them. Tonight, you can trust it too. There is a softness to letting go that does not feel like loss. It feels like returning something gently to where it belongs. Your body knows this feeling. Your mind remembers it. And now there is no need for more words. Only the quiet continuation of rest. Only the steady comfort of stillness. Only sleep arriving in its own time. Let everything continue to soften. At this stage, even the idea of time can loosen its shape. Minutes no longer need to pass in order. There is no beginning here and no ending. Just a gentle unfolding, like layers settling naturally into place. Rediscovered civilizations no longer feel distant now. They feel quiet and familiar, like something remembered without effort. Not a story being told, but a presence being felt. This is how the past rests, not as noise, not as urgency, but as a steady calm beneath the surface of everything. Imagine the earth breathing slowly, expanding and easing, night air cooling the land, stones releasing the warmth of the day, roots resting in dark soil, everything finding its natural position. Nothing is rushing. Nothing is unfinished. Your own breathing joins this rhythm without needing direction. In and out, slow, even unremarkable in the most comforting way. Thoughts may still appear now and then, but they arrive softened without edges. They no longer ask for attention. They drift and dissolve and leave no trace behind. This is not emptiness. It is fullness without effort. Ancient places reached this state long ago. After the last footsteps faded, after the final voices quieted, they settled into a deep, uninterrupted stillness. No expectations, no resistance, just rest, and they remained whole. You are allowed that same wholeness now. Nothing needs to be held together, nothing needs to be understood. The mind does not need to stay alert. Awareness can dim gently like lantern light lowered at the end of the evening. The night is steady. It does not change suddenly. It simply continues, holding everything evenly. If sleep has not arrived yet, that is fine. There is no deadline. Rest itself is already happening. And if sleep begins to take shape, soft, gradual, almost unnoticeable, there is no need to follow it consciously, just allow. Civilizations once trusted the cycle of day and night without clocks, without schedules. Darkness came, rest followed. Morning returned when it was ready. That same cycle still exists. It has not forgotten you. Let the silence grow comfortable. Let the space between thoughts widen. Let the sense of self become lighter, less defined, easier to carry. Nothing is being lost. Everything is simply settling, and in this settling there is peace. Remain here in this gentle quiet where nothing asks for attention. The world feels distant now, softened around the edges. Sounds are fewer. Sensations blur together into something calm and steady. There is no need to focus on any one thing. Awareness can rest, just as the ancient world rests beneath layers of earth. Rediscovered civilizations do not stir once they have settled. They do not replay their stories. They do not revisit their endings. They exist in a kind of complete stillness, finished, balanced, at ease. That same stillness is available to you. Your body knows how to rest without instruction. Muscles loosen naturally. Breathing finds its own pace. The mind no longer needs to scan or plan or remember. Everything essential continues without effort. Imagine the ground beneath you, solid and supportive. It has carried countless lives before this moment, and it carries you now just as steadily. Nothing is required from you in return. This is what it means to be held by time rather than pushed by it. The rediscovered past does not look back with regret. It does not wish to return. It rests in acceptance. And acceptance feels like relief. As you drift further, the idea of history fades into something abstract and distant, no longer a subject, no longer a story, just a quiet presence like a deep hum far below hearing. Sleep may come now, or it may already be here. Either way, there is no difference. The night continues calmly. The earth continues turning. The silence remains kind and steady. There is nothing left to uncover, nothing left to continue, only rest unfolding naturally, one slow breath at a time. Let the calm carry you a little further. At this depth of rest, even words become less important. They arrive softly, then fade like distant sounds heard through a dream. Meaning no longer needs to be followed. Nothing needs to be remembered. You are simply here. The night feels wide and gentle, stretching on without expectation. There is no sense of before or after, only this quiet moment, suspended and complete. Just as rediscovered civilizations eventually stop being studied and return to stillness, your thoughts can now return to rest. They have done their work. They can be set down without concern. Everything that needed attention today has already received it. Everything that can wait will wait. Breathing continues, slow and steady, without effort. Each breath feels softer than the last, as though the body is sinking comfortably into support. Muscles relax in their own time. Awareness drifts without direction. There is nothing to hold on to. Ancient places reached this stillness naturally. After centuries of silence, they no longer distinguish between day and night. They rest outside of time, and for this moment so can you. If images appear in your mind, let them dissolve gently. If thoughts form, let them pass without shape or meaning. You do not need to push them away. They fade on their own. The quiet remains. This is not an ending. It is simply rest continuing uninterrupted. The kind of rest that does not need to be guided. The kind that carries you softly into sleep. Everything continues exactly as it should. There is no effort now, no direction to follow. The mind drifts on its own, like a slow current beneath the surface of a quiet lake. Thoughts no longer form clearly. They soften before they can take shape, dissolving back into stillness. This is the deepest kind of rest, the kind that does not ask for awareness. The world beyond this moment feels very far away. Time no longer presses forward. It simply rests beside you, calm and unobserved. There is nothing to anticipate, nothing to recall. Only the gentle presence of being. Just as forgotten cities lie undisturbed beneath soil and stone, your thoughts settle beneath layers of quiet. They are not gone. They are simply resting exactly where they belong. Breathing remains slow and steady. Each breath feels smaller, lighter, easier than the one before. The body no longer needs instruction. It knows how to let go. Even the sense of listening begins to fade. Words become distant like echoes heard through thick walls. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to understand them. They are only here to keep the silence company. And soon, even that will no longer matter. The night holds everything evenly. There is no movement that requires attention. No sound that needs interpretation. Everything is calm, balanced, complete. If sleep has not fully arrived yet, it is already close, quiet, patient, unhurried. It does not rush toward you. It simply waits until you are ready to drift into it. And you are ready. Nothing more needs to be said. Nothing more needs to happen. Only rest, deepening naturally, carrying you gently onward. Remain in this quiet ease. There is no longer any need to listen closely. The sound of these words can fade into the background, becoming part of the calm rather than something to follow. Like a distant breeze, they pass through without leaving a trace. Your body is resting now in the way it was always meant to. Heavy where it needs to be, light where it can be, supported completely without effort. The world feels far away, softened and distant, as if wrapped in layers of night. Nothing from it needs you right now. Nothing is reaching for your attention. Just as ancient places eventually stop being visited and return to silence, your thoughts are settling into a deep, uninterrupted stillness. They no longer rise. They no longer pull. They simply rest. Breathing is quiet and automatic. In and out, each breath blending into the next so smoothly that the space between them disappears. This is not something you are doing. It is something that is happening. Time has loosened its grip. Moments no longer stack or move forward. They simply exist, wide and calm, without edges. If awareness drifts, let it drift. If sleep deepens, let it deepen. There is nothing to hold onto now, nothing to guide, nothing to continue. Only the gentle, steady presence of rest carrying you effortlessly onward into the quiet. Let everything slow even more. There is no rush to fill this space. Silence does not need decoration. It does not need meaning. It simply exists, steady and patient, like the deepest layers of the earth where nothing moves quickly and nothing is disturbed. At this depth, even the idea of continuing becomes unnecessary. There is no story unfolding now, no journey progressing from one place to another. There is only presence, soft, wide, and unbroken. You may notice that your thoughts have become quieter, thinner, less defined. They no longer arrive as complete sentences or clear images. They appear more like impressions, like faint ripples that smooth themselves out before they can travel far. This is natural. This is rest taking shape. Long ago, when ancient cities finally emptied, something similar happened. Activity slowed first, fewer footsteps, longer pauses between voices, lamps extinguished earlier in the evening, doors left closed. And eventually silence arrived, not suddenly but gently, like sleep arriving at the end of a long day. Nothing resisted it. The silence did not erase what came before. It simply settled over it, protecting it, holding it in place. That same silence is here now. Your body is doing what it knows how to do best, letting go without effort. Muscles soften without instruction. The jaw loosens, the brow smooths, the shoulders release their quiet work of holding the day together. Breathing continues, slow and regular, like a tide that no longer reaches far up the shore. Each breath barely noticeable, yet perfectly sufficient. There is no need to pay attention to it. Attention itself can rest now. Imagine standing at the edge of a rediscovered place one final time, not as a visitor, but as someone who understands that nothing needs to be taken. You do not carry artifacts with you. You do not collect memories. You simply leave the place as you found it, quiet, complete, undisturbed. Then you step away, not hurried, not reluctant. Just gently turning, trusting that what remains does not need you to stay. This is how sleep works. You do not chase it. You do not hold on to it. You simply stop standing in its way. Thoughts that once felt important now feel distant and neutral. They carry no urgency. They are no longer problems to solve, ideas to follow, or memories to revisit. They become background textures, like patterns in stone that no longer demand interpretation. And soon, even those textures soften. The mind begins to rest in between thoughts rather than inside them. In those spaces there is a deep, comfortable quiet, not empty, not dull, simply calm. Ancient places reached this state long ago. After the last generation moved on, after the final sound faded, they entered a kind of timelessness. Weather passed over them, seasons changed. Centuries layered themselves gently on top. Nothing was lost. Everything settled into balance. You are entering that same balance now, not for centuries, but for the night. And that is enough. There is nothing fragile about this moment. It does not need to be protected or maintained. It will continue whether you pay attention to it or not. That is the comfort of true rest. If sensations arise, a shift of weight, a distant sound, a passing feeling, they can be acknowledged without reaction. They do not require response. They fade naturally, like echoes absorbed by soft ground. The world beyond this moment continues, but it does so without you needing to participate. It will still be there later. It does not need to be watched. Time is generous. It does not demand productivity from rest. As awareness continues to dim, you may notice a sense of drifting, not moving anywhere but loosening from the need to be anchored. The sense of self becomes lighter, less defined. Boundaries soften. This is not disappearance. It is ease. Ancient civilizations did not vanish when they were abandoned. They transitioned into a different state, one of stillness rather than motion, presence rather than activity. You are allowed that same transition now. There is no role you need to play here, no identity you need to maintain. No effort required to remain yourself. You are already enough simply by being. As the mind relaxes further, images may blur or fragment. Memories may appear without context and then dissolve. None of this needs interpretation. This is simply the mind powering down gently, step by step. Like lights dimmed one room at a time. First the outer rooms, the plans, the worries, the conversations. Then the inner rooms, the reflections, the emotions, the sense of direction, until only the quiet center remains. In that center there is nothing to do, nothing to think, nothing to become, only rest. The earth beneath you remains steady just as it has always been. It does not shift suddenly. It does not hurry. It carries everything evenly without judgment. You are being carried now, not pushed forward, not pulled back, simply supported. Breathing continues as a soft background rhythm, barely noticeable. Each breath feels like less of an action and more like a continuation of stillness. In and out, but even that distinction begins to blur. At some point, you may no longer notice individual breaths at all. That is fine. Sleep does not need to be observed to happen. Ancient nights passed the same way. People lay down without knowing the exact moment they would fall asleep. They trusted the dark. They trusted the rhythm. They trusted their bodies, and morning always came. Tonight you do not need to think about morning. The night is enough. The quiet is enough. You are enough. As everything settles, there may be moments where awareness flickers briefly like a candle flame shifting before going still. These moments pass quickly. They do not interrupt rest. They are part of it. There is no need to return to attention. You can let go again and again, as many times as needed. Nothing is tracking progress. Nothing is counting. There is no finish line, only deepening rest. Rediscovered civilizations no longer ask to be understood. They do not need interpretation to be complete. They rest fully in what they are. You can rest the same way now, without explanation, without intention, without effort. The silence is not empty. It is full of calm, full of continuity, full of the quiet assurance that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. If consciousness drifts, let it drift. If sleep deepens, let it deepen. There is nothing left to continue. Only rest, steady and unbroken, carrying you gently onward into the night. Let the quiet stretch on. There is no need to measure how long this moment lasts. Time no longer needs structure here. It does not need edges or markers or direction. It simply opens wide and calm like a dark sky without stars, vast, steady, and unchanging. At this depth of rest, even effort feels distant. The mind is no longer trying to arrive anywhere. It is no longer watching itself. It is simply easing downward, layer by layer, the way dust settles naturally when nothing disturbs the air. This is not something you are doing. It is something you are allowing. Long ago, when ancient cities finally grew quiet, the transition was not dramatic. There was no final sound that marked the end. No clear moment when life stopped and silence began. Instead, activity thinned. Days shortened. Pauses grew longer. Eventually, stillness arrived so gradually that no one noticed it happening. That same gentleness is here now. Thoughts have slowed to the point where they no longer feel separate from silence. They rise faintly, without shape, then dissolve before they can become anything solid. There is no need to follow them. They do not carry meaning that must be understood. They are just movement, settling back into rest. Your body continues to soften in ways that feel almost unnoticeable. Muscles release their last traces of tension. The weight of your limbs becomes steady and familiar, as though gravity itself has become kinder. You are not sinking. You are being held. Breathing continues quietly without pause or effort. It no longer feels like something happening in the body, but something happening around it, like air moving gently through an open space. In and out, but even that rhythm begins to fade into the background. At some point, there is no clear distinction between one breath and the next. They blend together, smooth and uninterrupted, like waves that never quite reach the shore. This is where rest becomes deep. The mind no longer needs to keep watch. It no longer needs to stay oriented. The sense of direction loosens. There is no forward or backward, only a calm, suspended presence. Ancient places reached this state long ago. After centuries of silence, they no longer belong to any one moment in time. Rain passed over them. Wind moved through them. Seasons changed again and again without resistance. They did not try to remain as they were. They allowed change to happen gently. You are allowed that same ease tonight. Nothing needs to be held together. Nothing needs to be maintained. You can release the idea of control entirely. If a sound reaches you from the outside world, it can pass through without meaning. It does not require interpretation. It does not pull you back. It simply exists briefly, then fades. If a sensation appears, a shift, a warmth, a coolness, it can do the same. There is no need to react, no need to adjust. Everything settles on its own. Awareness itself begins to feel diffused, spread out, no longer focused in one place. The sense of being a single point softens. Boundaries blur gently without discomfort. This is not loss. It is expansion into rest. Imagine the way fog settles across a landscape at night. It does not erase what is there. It simply smooths the outlines, softens contrasts, and quiets detail. Everything remains, but nothing stands apart. Your thoughts are doing the same now. Memories lose their edges. Plans dissolve into neutrality. Even emotions become distant, like colors muted by low light. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is missing. This is exactly how rest deepens. Ancient civilizations did not resist when the time came to move on. They adapted, or they settled, or they faded gently into stillness. What remained was not regret but balance. Stone balanced with soil. Silence balanced with presence. You are finding that balance now. There is no need to understand this moment. Understanding requires effort, and effort is no longer necessary. The body and mind know what to do without instruction. They are returning to a natural state. As awareness continues to dim, you may notice that the idea of listening itself begins to fade. Words lose their importance. They become sounds without meaning, then impressions without sound, and finally nothing at all. This is not a problem. This is rest completing itself. You do not need to stay awake for this. You do not need to notice it happening. Sleep does not require permission. It simply arrives when space has been made. And space has been made. If there are brief moments where awareness surfaces, small flickers of thought or sensation, they pass quickly, like sparks that fade before becoming flame. They do not pull you out of rest. They are part of the natural descent. You can let go again as many times as needed. There is no failure here. There is no reset, only continued settling. The night holds everything evenly. It does not rush. It does not interrupt. It remains steady whether you are aware of it or not. The earth beneath you is unchanged, solid, supportive, quietly present. It has carried countless nights like this before, and it will carry countless more. You are safe within that continuity. There is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to prepare for, nothing waiting just beyond this moment. The present has narrowed to something simple and complete, just rest, just stillness, just the quiet continuation of being. Ancient ruins no longer ask questions. They no longer wait for answers. They rest fully in what they are. You can rest the same way now, without thought, without identity, without effort. The mind can go dark gently like a lantern turned low at the end of the evening, not extinguished suddenly, just dimmed slowly until light is no longer needed. And in that dimming there is comfort. There is no edge to cross, no moment to mark, only a gradual easing into deeper quiet. If sleep has already arrived, these words no longer matter. And if it has not, it will, softly, patiently, without announcement. Nothing more needs to happen. Nothing more needs to be said. Only rest, deep and unbroken, carrying you calmly through the night. Let the quiet continue to unfold, unmeasured and unobserved. There is no need to know how long you have been resting or how long you will continue. Time has softened into something wide and gentle, no longer marked by minutes or hours, but by stillness itself. The night does not ask where you are going. It does not ask who you are. It simply holds you the way the earth has always held what comes to rest upon it. At this depth, even the idea of drifting becomes unnecessary. There is no movement required, no direction to follow. Awareness rests where it is, and that is enough. Long ago, when ancient cities finally quieted, the silence did not feel empty. It felt settled. Walls cooled in the evening air. Streets rested beneath starlight. Stone absorbed the day's warmth and released it slowly into the night. Nothing hurried, nothing resisted. Everything found its place. That same settling is happening now. Your body no longer feels like something you need to manage. It breathes without instruction. It rests without effort. Muscles that once held tension have forgotten why they were holding at all. The weight you feel is not heaviness, it is support. You are not sinking. You are being received. Thoughts, if they appear, arrive without clarity or urgency. They are no longer ideas to follow, but faint impressions that dissolve before they can take form. Like shapes seen through fog, they soften and disappear on their own. There is no need to push them away. They know how to leave. Breathing continues in the background, quiet and steady, blending so seamlessly into the silence that it almost disappears. Each breath feels less like an action and more like a continuation of stillness itself. In and out, but even that distinction fades. At some point, the mind stops tracking the breath altogether. It does not forget how to breathe. It simply stops paying attention. And that is exactly what allows rest to deepen. Ancient nights passed this way. People lay down after long days, listening to the sounds of the dark, wind, insects, distant water, and then, without noticing the exact moment, sleep arrived. No one needed to witness it. No one needed to mark it. It simply happened. You are allowed that same simplicity. There is nothing left to think through, nothing that needs resolving. The mind does not need to stay alert or aware. It has done enough for now. Awareness begins to spread out, no longer centered in one place. The sense of being here loosens, boundaries soften, the edges of thought blur into something indistinct and calm. This is not confusion, it is rest without effort. Imagine a landscape at night seen from far above. Lights dimmed, movement slowed, roads empty, everything still present but quiet, nothing demanding attention, nothing standing apart. Your inner world looks the same now. Memories fade into neutral impressions. Emotions lose intensity and settle into something even and calm. Plans dissolve into irrelevance. There is no future to prepare for in this moment and no past that needs revisiting. Only the present remains, and it is very small, very quiet, very complete. Ancient civilizations did not know they would be rediscovered. They did not leave markers or instructions. They simply lived and then they rested. Time did the rest on its own. Your thoughts can rest the same way now. They do not need to be preserved. They do not need to be organized. They can simply settle into silence. The night is steady. It does not shift suddenly. It does not surprise. It holds everything evenly without preference or judgment. If sounds reach you from the outside world, they can drift through without meaning. They do not pull you back. They do not require interpretation. They are just part of the larger quiet. If sensations arise, a warmth, a coolness, a gentle shift, they can pass just as easily. Nothing needs adjustment, nothing needs correction, everything finds its place naturally. As awareness continues to dim, even the sense of listening begins to fade. Words lose their shape. They become sounds, then impressions, then nothing at all. This is not something you need to notice. It is simply happening. The mind is letting go, step by step, layer by layer, just as ancient places were covered gently by time. No sudden collapse, no force, just gradual settling. This is the deepest kind of rest, the kind that does not require participation, the kind that continues whether you are aware of it or not. If brief moments of thought return, small flickers of awareness, they fade quickly. They do not interrupt anything. They are part of the natural rhythm of falling asleep. You can let go again and again, as many times as needed. There is no wrong way to rest. The earth beneath you remains unchanged, solid, quiet, patient. It has carried countless nights like this before. It carries you now without effort. You are safe within that steadiness. There is nothing fragile about this moment. It does not need to be protected. It does not need to be maintained. It will continue whether you think about it or not. That is the comfort of true stillness. Ancient ruins no longer seek meaning. They do not ask to be understood. They exist fully as they are, balanced and complete in their silence. You can rest the same way now. Without explanation, without awareness, without effort. The mind can dim gently like a lantern turned low at the end of a long evening, not extinguished suddenly, just softened until light is no longer needed. And in that dimming there is ease. There is no edge to cross, no moment to mark, only a gradual deepening into quiet. Sleep may already be here unnoticed, or it may be arriving slowly, patiently, without announcement. Either way, there is nothing left to do, nothing left to follow, nothing left to continue. Only rest, deep and unbroken, carrying you calmly through the night just as it always has. Let the quiet keep going without shape or boundary. There is no longer a need to think of this moment as something that must be filled. Silence does not ask to be completed. It is already whole. It stretches gently in every direction, steady and calm, like deep water that does not ripple unless touched. You are resting now in a place where effort has no purpose. The mind has stopped reaching outward. It has stopped looking for meaning or structure or progression. It no longer needs to know what comes next. It has discovered something simpler and more comforting than answers: stillness. In the ancient world, there were nights when nothing happened at all. No decisions were made. No journeys began. No messages were carried. People slept, animals rested, and the land itself seemed to pause. These nights were not remembered because they did not need to be. They were complete simply by existing. Tonight is like that. There is nothing significant about this moment in the way we usually define significance, and that is exactly what makes it safe. There is no pressure here, no expectation, no need to be aware of yourself resting. Rest is happening on its own. Breathing continues quietly, but it no longer feels like something you are doing. It is more like something the night is doing for you. Each breath blends seamlessly into the next, until the idea of beginning and ending becomes meaningless. Your body has settled into a position that feels inevitable, as though it has always been here. Weight is distributed evenly. There is no part of you that needs to adjust or shift or correct anything. Everything has found its place. Thoughts, when they appear, do so faintly and without clarity. They no longer arrive as sentences or images. They are more like impressions, soft, incomplete, and already fading by the time they are noticed. They require nothing from you. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to let them go. They dissolve on their own the way mist disappears when the air warms. The boundary between being awake and being asleep has become thin and unimportant. You are no longer standing on one side or the other. You are simply resting in between, where nothing is demanded. This is where the mind feels safest. In this place, time loses its shape. Minutes do not pass. Seconds do not count. There is no forward movement that needs to be tracked. Everything feels suspended, held gently in place. Ancient ruins exist in this same state. They are not moving toward anything. They are not waiting for anything. They simply are. They are complete without action. You are complete without effort. The night holds everything evenly. It does not favor wakefulness or sleep. It allows both to exist without conflict. It does not rush the transition. It does not interrupt. It waits patiently, knowing that rest always deepens on its own. If there is still a faint sense of awareness, it does not need to be removed. Awareness can rest too. It does not need to stay alert. It does not need to stay focused. It can soften, blur, and drift. You do not need to disappear for rest to be complete. You simply need to stop holding yourself together. And you have. The sense of identity loosens gently now. Not in a frightening way, not in a dramatic way, just enough that it no longer feels heavy. The idea of you becomes lighter, less defined, easier to carry. You are still here, but you are not trying to be. This is how the deepest rest feels. There is no effort in it, no striving, no awareness of progress, just quiet continuation. Imagine standing in a vast, open space at night where the horizon is barely visible and the sky stretches endlessly overhead. There are no landmarks, no paths, no destinations, nothing that needs to be reached. You are not lost there, you are free from direction. Your inner world feels the same now. Open, undisturbed, unmeasured. Thoughts that once carried weight no longer do. They feel distant, irrelevant, neutral. Even emotions soften into something flat and calm, no longer pulling attention in any direction. Nothing is missing. Nothing is unresolved. This is not numbness. It is peace without effort. Ancient civilizations did not disappear because something went wrong. They ended because cycles completed, because environments changed, because people moved on, because stillness arrived naturally when motion was no longer needed. That kind of ending is not failure, it is completion. Tonight, you are not ending anything, but you are completing the day. The day has done all it can do. It no longer needs you. You can let it rest now, the same way ancient streets rested after sunset. Lamps extinguished, voices faded, doors closed softly, not in urgency but in trust. Trust that morning would come. Trust that rest would hold, and it always did. The mind remembers this trust instinctively. It does not need instruction. It does not need reassurance. It simply returns to rest when conditions are gentle enough. And conditions are gentle now. Very gentle. If the outside world still exists somewhere beyond this moment, it feels distant and unimportant. Sounds, if they arrive, do not carry meaning. They do not need interpretation. They do not pull you back. They pass through, barely noticed, like wind moving across stone. The silence remains. The silence is kind. It does not press in. It does not feel empty. It feels full of rest. The deeper you go into this quiet, the less there is to notice. The less there is to describe. Language itself begins to feel unnecessary. Words lose their edges. They blur into sound, then into feeling, then into nothing at all. This is not something you need to follow. It is simply happening. Sleep does not arrive as a single moment. It arrives as a gradual forgetting. Forgetting to listen, forgetting to think, forgetting to notice. Until there is nothing left to forget, only rest remains. If awareness flickers briefly, if you notice the quiet or notice yourself resting, that awareness will fade again naturally. You do not need to hold on to it. You do not need to push it away. It comes and goes like a tide. The tide always returns to calm. Your body is resting deeply now, even if the mind still drifts occasionally. This is enough. This is more than enough. Rest does not require perfection. It only requires permission. And permission has already been given. The earth beneath you continues to exist in complete stillness. It does not notice the passing of hours. It does not hurry the sunrise. It does not mark the night. It simply holds. You are being held, not watched, not measured, not judged, just held. There is no danger here, no obligation, no expectation. The world is not asking anything of you. You can let go completely. There is nothing left to continue, nothing left to describe, nothing left to guide. Only rest, unfolding gently and endlessly, carrying you deeper into the quiet where words no longer matter and sleep no longer needs to be named. Let the quiet remain exactly as it is. There is no need to add anything to this moment. No need to deepen it, no need to improve it. Rest has already settled into its natural shape, and that shape is enough. Wide, gentle, and unchanging. At this depth, the idea of continuing feels almost unnecessary. Nothing is moving forward anymore. Nothing is unfolding. Everything is simply resting where it has come to rest. This is the point where effort truly ends. Your body no longer feels like something you inhabit. It feels like something that has returned to itself. Breathing continues, but it no longer stands out. It blends into the background of stillness, as subtle and unremarkable as the night air itself. In and out, or perhaps not even that, just quiet. The mind has stopped arranging thoughts. It has stopped forming narratives. There is no beginning, no middle, no end. Only a soft awareness that drifts without direction and then gradually thins. Thoughts may still arise, but they no longer feel personal. They do not feel connected to anything. They appear briefly like distant lights seen through heavy fog, and then they fade before meaning can attach itself. You do not follow them. You do not push them away. You simply remain. This is not emptiness. It is fullness without movement. Ancient nights felt like this. After the last fire dimmed, after voices quieted, after animals settled, the world entered a deep pause. Nothing needed watching. Nothing needed managing. Life trusted itself to continue. You can trust that now. There is nothing fragile about rest. It does not break if you stop paying attention. It strengthens when you do. As awareness softens further, the sense of being you loosens gently, not disappearing, not dissolving, just becoming less defined, less outlined, less heavy. You are still here, but you are not holding yourself together anymore. And that is a relief. The boundaries between thoughts, sensations, and silence blur. There is no longer a clear distinction between inner and outer. Everything feels evenly quiet, evenly distant, evenly calm. This is where the mind feels safest. Here, there is nothing to react to, nothing to anticipate, nothing to resolve, just being. If a sound reaches you, it arrives already softened, already distant. It does not interrupt. It does not require a response. It passes through the quiet and leaves it unchanged. If a sensation arises, a shift of warmth, a faint pressure, a subtle movement, it does the same. It appears briefly and then settles back into stillness. Nothing lingers, nothing accumulates, everything releases itself naturally. Time has lost its meaning here. There is no sense of duration, no awareness of passing minutes. The night is no longer something you are inside of, it is something you are part of. This is the kind of rest that does not end abruptly. It does not switch on or off. It deepens quietly without announcement. Sleep may already be present now, unnoticed, or it may be hovering nearby, waiting without urgency. Either way, nothing needs to change. The mind no longer needs reassurance. It no longer asks whether rest is happening. It no longer monitors itself. That monitoring has gently shut down, and in its place there is ease. Imagine the deepest layer of the earth. No movement, no sound, no pressure to change. Everything above it shifts and moves, but down there stillness remains uninterrupted. You are resting in that same depth now. Nothing reaches you here. Nothing disturbs you. The day has fully released you. Its concerns have lost their shape. Its events no longer replay. Its emotions have flattened into neutrality. Tomorrow does not exist yet, and you do not need it to. This moment is complete on its own. Breathing continues in a way that feels almost imperceptible. You are no longer aware of the beginning of a breath or the end of one. There is just a soft continuity, like a gentle current far below the surface. Awareness itself feels thinner now, less focused, less interested. It drifts without anchoring to anything. This is not confusion. This is surrender without effort. Ancient places rest like this forever. They do not know they are ancient. They do not know they were rediscovered. They simply exist in a state beyond urgency. You are touching that same state now, if only briefly, and that is enough. There is no need to go deeper. There is no need to stay here. Rest happens on its own schedule. If consciousness fades completely, that is fine. If it flickers softly for a while longer, that is fine too. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is delayed. The night continues holding you evenly without change. There is no more guidance needed, no more imagery to follow, no more ideas to introduce. Only quiet, only rest. Only the steady continuation of stillness carrying you gently onward, whether you notice it or not. And in that continuation there is peace. Let everything remain exactly as it is. There is no need to adjust, no need to refine, no need to move toward anything else. This moment has already arrived at its natural resting place. It does not need help to stay here. At this depth, even the idea of relaxing has faded. There is no action left to perform, no technique left to follow, no awareness left to guide. Rest has taken over quietly, the way night settles over land without announcement. You may notice that thoughts have become very faint now. They do not arrive with language or images. They are more like distant impressions, barely forming before dissolving again. They no longer belong to you in any meaningful way. They pass, and the quiet remains. Your body is resting in a way that feels ancient and familiar. Muscles are no longer holding themselves in readiness. There is no subtle tension waiting to be released. Everything that needed to soften has already done so. What remains is simple presence. Breathing continues, but it feels far away, as if it is happening somewhere beyond your awareness. There is no need to notice it. There is no need to follow it. It is steady, automatic, and sufficient. The space between breaths feels wide and comfortable, like a pause that never needs to end. This is the kind of stillness that does not feel empty. It feels full in a quiet way, as though nothing is missing and nothing could be added. The mind has stopped asking questions. It has stopped narrating. It has stopped checking whether rest is happening. And because of that, rest has deepened naturally. Imagine a vast plain at night covered in soft darkness. No lights, no movement, no sound, just open space, calm and unbroken. There is nothing to focus on and nothing that demands attention. Your inner world feels like that now. Wide, undisturbed, complete. Time has fully dissolved here. There is no sense of how long this has lasted or how long it will continue. That awareness has gently slipped away, and with it, any sense of urgency. The night is no longer something passing around you. It is something you are resting inside of. If a sound from the outside world appears, it does not feel close. It does not carry meaning. It drifts through like wind far away, touching nothing. If a sensation appears in the body, it feels neutral, distant, already fading. Nothing gathers momentum. Nothing interrupts. Everything settles back into quiet almost immediately. Awareness itself feels softer now, as if it is no longer anchored to any single point. It drifts without direction, without intention, without curiosity. This is not losing awareness. It is resting awareness. The sense of self has become light, almost transparent. There is no effort to maintain identity, no need to remember who you are or what you were doing earlier. You are not disappearing. You are resting without definition. Ancient nights held people like this for thousands of years, before clocks, before schedules, before the need to track time or productivity. People lay down when the day was done and allowed the dark to take over. They did not monitor their sleep. They trusted it. That same trust exists in you now. You do not need to guide this process. You do not need to witness it. Sleep does not require observation to happen. It arrives when the mind has stopped holding itself upright. And the mind has done that now. If awareness flickers briefly, if you notice the quiet or notice yourself resting, that awareness will soften again on its own. There is no need to hold on to it. Nothing here requires consistency. Nothing requires effort. This is the deepest permission, the permission to stop, the permission to let go, the permission to be carried. The world beyond this moment is very far away now. It has lost its edges. It has lost its weight. It no longer presses inward. Even the idea of tomorrow feels abstract and unimportant. There is only now, and now is very still. Breathing continues without being noticed. The body remains heavy and supported. The mind remains quiet and unoccupied. Everything essential is happening without your involvement. You are not responsible for anything in this moment, not for staying awake, not for falling asleep, not for maintaining calm. Everything is already calm. The night continues evenly without change. It does not move toward an ending. It does not prepare for morning. It simply exists, holding everything gently in place. If sleep has fully arrived, these words are no longer reaching you. And if it has not, it will, softly, patiently, without any clear moment of arrival. There is nothing left to follow, nothing left to think, nothing left to continue. Only rest, deep and unbroken, carrying you quietly onward, beyond awareness, beyond effort, beyond words. As this quiet journey comes to a close, there is nothing you need to do except remain where you are. If you are still awake, thank you for sharing this long, gentle moment. If sleep has already taken you once or twice and brought you back again, that is perfectly natural too. These forgotten worlds, rediscovered by accident, remind us that patience and stillness always have value. That nothing meaningful is ever truly lost, and that sometimes the quiet moments last the longest. If you found comfort here, if this story kept you company through the night, or if you simply enjoyed resting with these thoughts, you are welcome to stay. You can subscribe to this channel for more calm journeys through history, forgotten places, and quiet stories designed for rest. And if you've reached the end of this video, leave a comment below. It doesn't have to be long. Just a word, a symbol, or a simple thought, something to quietly say, "I was here." Thank you for listening. Rest well.